Mid-Plains Community College Board of Governors approving the property tax request and the budget for the 2025-26 academic school year. Beatrice Reyna breaks down the numbers in your News 2 Newsmakers.
Plains Community College wrapped up their Board of Governors meeting last night, and joining me now are Daniel Stinman and Ryan Purdy. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.
So, it is budget season.
It is.
Yeah. So last night we did have our budget hearings, and then we had the board meeting that approved the budget. So this is year 2 of the Community College Future Fund, and that was designed in the 2024 legislative session to replace the general operating tax levy with state dollars. And so we used to have that 11.25 cent maximum levy cap that we could do for operations and capital. And so are now restricted to 2 cents of capital. So we have about a $200 million physical plant amongst all of our campuses. So that's the insurance replacement value of all of our facilities. And so the 2 cents generates about $5.5 million. And that's all the funds we have for those facilities. So any construction, maintenance, renovations, infrastructure updates that we need to do, roofs, utilities, whatever that might be, we use that to fund our capital improvement plan. And so the 2 cents generates about, again, $5.5 million. It's about 2.5%, not quite 2.5% of our total value of all those facilities. And so that's really the piece that the local taxpayers fund as part of our $60 million budget is about that 5.5. The future fund generates about $19 million, and the state aid's about another $10 million. So about $30 million comes from the state. They fund about 90% of the operating budget. So now we're kind of at the mercy of enrollment and then the state legislature. The future fund does increase by 3.5%. It's about 60% of our operational funds. If we have enrollment greater than 3.5%, then we'll get additional funding. But state aid, the other side of it, was flat. And so when you add those together, it's about a 2% total revenue increase. When you look at our expenditure side, 70% is salaries and benefits. And so when you see a 3 to 4% increase in packages based on negotiated agreements and those types of things, obviously then we got to look to where else can we reduce expenditures, positions, or increase tuition. So that's the only other bucket now that we really have with that. So we're going to spend the next about 18 months trying to figure out how this works, especially with the free dual credit. We went to free dual credit. That's about $750,000 that we're going to eat out of pocket this year, but we're seeing exponential growth. Our dual credit's up about 24% for the fall compared to last year. Non-dual credit's up a couple percent, and when we add them all together, we're about 9.5% up from where we were last year. So the positive, that's about 6% additional funding that we can anticipate next fall if those numbers hold. But for community colleges, that funding model is based on enrollment throughout the year. So from the beginning of the fiscal year to the end, it changes every day. It's not a snapshot in time. So things are looking great in the fall, but the money comes in the next year. But again, we'll be at that 2 cent capital levy limit, unless for some reason the state says we can't afford the future fund, and then we have that safety net that we could come back to general operating budget or a tax levy. But our board does not want to do that. The state legislature does not want to do that.
Were you surprised that there was no opposition? Because in a time where school districts are seeing opposition from constituents.
I think the reason that we're not is because they went from that 11.5 cent cap to 2 cents. So now when you look at your tax bill, you know, Mid-Plains for in all community colleges, if you live in a town where you have a city tax levy, we're about 1% of the total budget. You know, if you live in the country, there's no city, you're probably pushing 1.5%. So I think we're so far down there that, you know, there's not a lot of impact. I mean, they drop our tax levy, you know, 10%. It's not going to be a whole lot to the total tax bill. And so, you know, I think we're doing the best we can. For Mid-Plains, we're unique because we serve an 18-county service area. The other areas are huge too, but there's no other entity of higher education. So we have NCTA in Curtis, which is a 2-year school, but there's no 4-year schools. So we are what's available for higher education, and I think that helps.
Perfect.
Okay, all right, thank you so much for joining me. Back to you.